2023 wasn't a good year for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to make 2024 a better one for myself. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Head to factormeals.com/C350 and use the promo code C350 to get 50% off. That's code C350 at factormeals.com/C350 to get 50% off.
Let's go. That's right. Let's go. It's the C3 BeatCheck. Brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. It's the C3 Panthers podcast where each and every week we put our ear to the streets and check the beat. We got a cool show tonight. Josh Klein from the Riot Report's going to join us in just a moment. Lastly, my wheelman, my sidekick, actually, I would just say the sidekick makes it sound like you're my little guy, you're my equal, homie.
I'm equal playing. It's a Wonder Twin.
I'm telling you, man, and there is a lot to talk about this week. The news has continued to break. I mean, I won't say continued to break, but it's been a news week for a crappy team as the Carolina Panthers have parted ways with Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, coming off a bye week, and things continue to be uncertain going forward. Uncertainty seems the kind of recipe for things. So, Cody, as right before we intro our guest in, what's on your minds? What are the top stories for you, bro? Obviously it's Joe Brady. What other questions are on your mind as we check the beat?
You know what? Surprisingly enough, Tony Dunn, Joe Brady is so yesterday, man. All the rage is talking about how this offensive line has been so thoroughly mismanaged, man. That's what is on the tip of everybody's tongue on Panther Nation. You know, a lot of people think Brady Christianson has been given the short end of the stick. If you get my drift. So listen, we have a great guest tonight, and look, as always, we have some of the best Panther fans in all of YouTube hanging out with us on a Wednesday night. Tony Dunn, it's my man Drew. We got Peaceful Savage, Roosevelt Mongo, Ted CMs, The Real Roller, Tim Estes, Underground West, Richard Williams, Tony Dunn. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
Like I said, time to check the beat as we check in with Josh Klein from the Riot Report. You got to say, momentarily, it felt like, actually, since we talked to you, Josh, last, it's been a roller coaster ride for Panther fans of emotion. And momentarily, I saw the pulse of Carolina Panthers fans quicken as we brought back Cam Newton. But that clearly was just like this. What is it? It's like a what's when you get the shot, the adrenaline shot? You remember when in Pulp Fiction where they stabbed her 3 times in the heart? Whatever that shot is, that adrenaline, it wore off pretty quickly because, boy, things have changed. So, Josh, welcome back to the Beat Check. Tell us what's on your mind as you report on the Carolina Panthers continuously and enduring this pain with us.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It's been a long, when you say roller coaster, it certainly has. I mean, when you think about where this team was at the beginning of the season, where this franchise was at the beginning of the season, or even like during the off season, it seems like the Q rating for a lot of people in that front office, in that coaching staff, in the franchise, in the building at Minton Moorhead, have gone down over the course of the past 3 months from where they were. It seemed like this team was certainly, I think most people that looked at the Panthers during the offseason of 2021 thought that they were heading in the right direction, and now I think a lot, I don't know that I have my finger quite on the pulse of the fan base, maybe as much as you guys do. But it feels like most people feel like they're going in the wrong direction now, right? Or at least I think for me, it's less about going in the wrong direction or the right direction. It's just that I don't know what direction they're going in. They just seem like it felt like they were all moving in the same direction. The boat was turning. The oars were all pushing one way. And now it just seems like there's a lot of inconsistency in the building, kind of from the top down, and that is disconcerting because inconsistency, obviously, that doesn't lead to victories. It doesn't lead to success in the long term. So it's not an awesome time. Sorry to be a bummer right off the bat, but
don't worry. Don't worry. That's actually is the most heartening way of describing it that a lot of people have had. You tweeted this out this might have been last week or 10 days ago. You tweeted out the 3-0 start may have been the worst thing that happened. You remember this? That the worst thing that happened for this team, this coaching staff, and the fan base. And I thought it was a very thoughtful tweet. There was a lot to that because last night on the C3 Panthers podcast, we talked about how this is, and we've really been having kind of similar discussions each week. It seems like they just every now and then are nuanced by some new development. But at the beginning of this season, or even I would say this is that you couldn't have presented a situation to me where I thought that Matt Rhule would not be the coach in 2022. Right. I mean, is that I would say his seat could get hot this year, but there would get a third year. Like you said, things were inching at least in the right direction. It felt like credited as a builder of programs. At least that's what a lot of people have told us. On top of that, he is the brand, the process, doing these things the right way rather than panicking and doing all of this. And somehow, since the beginning of the season, it feels like this is like I would be more surprised if Matt Rhule is the coach next year than I would be now. You know what I'm saying? That would be stunning. And it's such a turn. And when you said that 3-0 start, one of the things that made it interesting to me, and just to piggyback on your comment, was it's not the 5 wins that are the problem. It's not the number of wins that I needed more to feel. It feels like we don't have direction. And the people who we are looking to for continuity, the people who we are looking to for leadership, are panicking even more than we are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. The one thing I will disagree with is I think barring a 5-12 finish, I don't think you're going to see Matt Rhule fired this offseason. I think I understand where a lot of people are coming from. I think a lot of people are, are upset with how the season is going, just like you are, just like, just like what we said. It doesn't seem like they're heading in a specific direction. Doesn't feel like the moves doesn't feel like what they're doing has intentionality behind it, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Feels like they're just kind of going week to week. as opposed to it did feel like last season, and especially even when you look to the draft, not as much once Sam Darnold came to town, but the way they were trading down, they were collecting assets, they were getting younger on the roster. It felt like, okay, so this is how this team is going to do it. They're going to be young, they're going to be exciting. Maybe they're not going to have that many wins, but they're going to be what the Charlotte Hornets are right now. They're going to show you some flashes, or not even what the Hornets are right now, what the Hornets were 2 years ago, where they're going to show you some flashes. They're going to be well coached. They're going to execute, and you're going to see steps moving in the right direction from the coaching staff, from the young players, from the GM, from all of these guys. And I'm not sure that we saw a whole lot of that. I think you've seen some of these young players get a lot better. I think they have some of the guys that they have brought in have been good, almost surprisingly good. But I think what you haven't seen has been that arrow pointed in the same direction, because it doesn't seem like some of the things that they've done over the past 8 weeks have moved them, have made them better in the long term. And ultimately, I hate to just draw lines from one decision, but ultimately the Sam Darnold trade is going to cost everyone their job, because it was a bad decision. Maybe, whether it was forced from, whether they were coerced into making that move or not, they still made it. And I think they were in the market for a quarterback, and they struck out on Stafford, they struck out on Watson. They ended up with Sam Darnold, who was the worst quarterback in the NFL last season. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL this season. And you traded 3 assets for him that you needed to get better in a rebuild. And that didn't make any sense. There were a million different ways they could have gone with the quarterback. I know Teddy Bridgewater is not anybody's favorite quarterback, but
we would have loved to have him. Yeah, and we would have loved to have him either. I mean, and you didn't even have to get Justin Fields. It would have worked if you had Justin Fields sitting behind him, but still, it got worse. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. So, Josh, I know you're online, you're on Twitter. We've gone back and forth a time or two. So I know that whenever you do get the opportunity to ask questions, you have an idea of what the fans want to know and what they're talking about. And, as I alluded to earlier, we continue having this conversation about left tackle. And Matt Rhule just refuses to believe that Brady Christianson has any business playing on left tackle because of the length of his arms. Brady Christianson even said in his press conference today that he had never played at guard until he came here to Carolina. So what is it? Is it just the arm length? Why is Matt Rhule so dead set and determined on playing Cam Irving and Dennis Daly at that left tackle position, and instead of Brady Christianson, even after Brady Christianson even looked to show some promise at that left tackle position when he did have the opportunity?
I think it's a complicated answer. I think that I will say, first of all, I don't think Brady Christianson played very well at left tackle the first opportunity that he got. I think he looked better the second time that I can't remember which one was the second one, but the first
it might have been the Washington game.
The first one was Philadelphia, and then the next one was Washington football team, because all of the starting edge rushers were out. So a lot of people were like, yeah, Brady Christianson did well because he was going against the backups.
Whatever. You can only block the guy that are in front of you. And that's fine. Like, and some days you're going to be lining up against backup defensive ends. Some days you're going to be lining up against Chase Young. It is what it is. I think that they obviously, that this story's been well told. They are that they thought that he was a better guard than a center. That's why they drafted him. They had a second round grade on him at guard, better guard than a tackle, excuse me. And they had a second round grade on him at guard and a third round grade on him at tackle. And it was clear from the beginning that they wanted him to be a guard. What has been confusing, and this is the same thing we've been talking about, is if you wanted him to be a guard, then why were his first 2 appearances at left tackle and right tackle?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense to me. If you think he's a better guard than a tackle, there have been many opportunities for him to play guard, but yet he keeps getting thrown out there at tackle. Maybe he's the 3rd best tackle on the roster. That doesn't speak very highly of the tackles on the roster. But if the goal is to be better on a long timeline, then to me it says, hey, we think this guy's going to be a guard. We're going to put him at guard. And if the left tackle position suffers, then the left tackle position suffers. But if you think he's the 3rd best left tackle on the roster, that doesn't really make any sense with thinking that he's a better guard than a tackle. If all of these things they're just jumbled, and it's not a clear message. Messaging has been a big issue, I think, from the Panthers as well. That they probably need to improve on, and that's been my biggest question in terms of like how they've been using Brady Christianson. If you don't think he can play left tackle, I'm fine with that. I don't purport to know better than Matt Rhule and Pat Meyer and NFL professional head coaches that are literally paid millions of dollars to evaluate guys. But what I can tell you is that if you tell me one thing, you tell me you think he's a good guard, and you keep putting him at tackle, though, that doesn't make any sense to me. So that's been my main concern with it. If they think that you need long arms. Matt Rhule was talking today about how when you can get when there's that much separation between the end and he has that much time to get head of steam rushing at you. I get it. You talk to guards, you talk to tackles, you can understand why you like the idea of having them have long arms. And let's be honest, I get it. He was very good at left tackle at BYU. But BYU, their opponents are not NFL defensive ends. Like they're just not. So I understand if you don't want to play him at left tackle, but I don't understand the way they've gone about it over the course of the season.
He may very well be right. He may, Matt Rhule may very well be right, but it seems like he's trying to prove this to us at a time that it's unnecessary, right? And what I mean by that is like he may have short arms, but the guy beside you has a broken neck. Cam Irvin can't even play. Like we have nobody. On top of that is it seems like he's trying to win today. And I don't know. I like why wouldn't you be working on player development a little bit? And I agree with you. Is this if you believe he's a guard, then give him some. Let's see him at guard. My question for you is this: are you surprised how fickle Matt Rhule is? And I'll give you some examples about this. I don't know. Last season I thought, man, all I wanted to see from this coaching staff coming from college is that they weren't in over their head. And I thought I saw that. I am not one of those people that goes, oh man, we could have called a timeout there and saved 4 seconds. You know what I mean? Is that we all make errors, but I thought the team looked decently put together last year. I thought that nobody looked completely out of sorts. I didn't think any game plan looked like ridiculous. I didn't think that, but this year has been for lack of a better word, a shit show at every level. Whether it be special teams having too many or not enough people on, right? I mean, like all these small things. But what I think is that's so surprising to me is that Matt Rhule feels very reactionary. Week 1, we come out there and rush Christian McCaffrey 33 touches, and the media goes, oh, are you going to do this to Christian McCaffrey each week? And then the next week, it's like a force cycle of putting Chuba Hubbard and these other guys in. And then he reacts to the headlines, I feel like, as more than anyone. Are you surprised that he's not more steady the course? Because I remember Ron Rivera would not have, he wouldn't have given a shit what we thought.
Yeah. Ron's going to do what Ron's going to do.
That's right.
whether that's a I think sometimes it's a pot when it's working, it's positive. When it's bad, it's negative. I think that I don't know. I mean, to me, somebody that is so focused in on the process and the brand and doing the same thing every day, it is surprising to me that all of these changes seem to get made on a weekly basis. But if we're being honest, right up to Joe Brady being fired on
Yes.
Sunday. To me, if you are a team that is aiming to be better on a long timeline, firing your offensive coordinator with 5 games left in the year, like, I'm not sure what that does. Is the point because his game plans were so bad that Jeff Nixon is now going to put you in a better position to win over the last 5 games? If that's the case, then isn't he a young coach that you can improve? Because Joe Brady is, the youngest offensive coordinator in the league, was brought in as somebody who had never really had this kind of responsibility in the NFL. And if you want to be a coach and a leader, it seems like personally, I would rather see them try to improve him. And then if that can't happen, then you part ways, rather than on a Sunday of the bye week to fire somebody with 5 games left.
5 days late.
It doesn't
4 or 5 days late.
Again, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't really make sense. Like
he seems to do where the wind is blowing. And I think moving on from Teddy Bridgewater, for someone for this podcast who was very critical about the ceiling of Teddy Bridgewater, at the end of the day is that we were with him, and stuck with him, not stuck with him, but they have moved in every direction at any light breeze. I feel like, and I feel like they read the headlines, dude.
I don't think. Sorry to cut you off, but just on that
Teddy
thing, I don't think the breeze about Teddy was light. I think that if the first person that started talking about how they were dissatisfied with Teddy Bridgewater as the quarterback was the owner of the Panthers, David Tepper, unprompted when they fired Marty Herney, came out and said that he did that. When you're evaluating the quarterback position, you want to look at how they play in the fourth quarter, and those stats count more, and just like very veiled, very, very thinly veiled comments about how he was unsatisfied with Teddy Bridgewater, and then it was all downhill from there. And I have been on the I have said since the very beginning, Teddy Bridgewater got a bum rap. All he did was get the ball to 4,000-yard players with a team that was just as injured as this team is this year, and now they are ostensibly terrible on offense, and they were respectable on offense at the very least. You see what he's doing out there. He was a leader. To me, I think he got a bum rap because of this win now inconsistent attitude. Because if you're building for the future, Teddy Bridgewater could have been the quarterback this year. But if you need to win in your second year in 2021, then
get Sam Darnold.
Or get somebody, or I don't think it was Sam Darnold. I think it was get somebody else. Because I don't like what I'm seeing from Teddy, and I think a lot of people that are probably in this chat that they didn't like what they were seeing from Teddy either. And I get it. You watch some of these Denver games, you watch some of the tape from last year, and it's just like, ugh.
Oh, they're trying to get rid of him right now too.
Yeah, I think I read this really good piece on The Ringer from Ben Solak about Taylor Heineke, and how Taylor Heineke is probably never going to be a star NFL quarterback, but what he is he has proven that he can be an average NFL quarterback. He can play in the NFL, and there are lots of guys in the NFL right now that have not proven that, or that have proven they can't play in the NFL.
Sam Darnold.
So when you get a guy that can play in the NFL, it's like I would rather have that guy than take a shot on a guy because he was a 3rd overall pick, or because he's somebody new.
Yeah. So let's move to the quarterback position, since we've already started to talk about it. The Panthers really don't have a lot of options going forward. I mean, I was saying this last night on the podcast. Panther fans are essentially hoping that no matter how our record ends up looking this season, you hope that you can see some sign of life from Cam Newton in these next 5 games, So that way there would be some incentive to want to sign him to at least a 1 or 2 year deal. And the reason I said that was because what other avenues do the Panthers have to go down to get another quarterback on the roster? You have to hope that there's one that you like in the draft that you'd be able and willing to spend your top 10 pick on. Even then, you don't have a second and third round pick. So it's not like you can really build in the draft around that quarterback. Well, what is the answer at the quarterback position going forward? And let me ask you this even. Do you foresee a scenario where they let Cam Newton walk after this year, and because Sam Darnold is on the hook for $18 million next year, they're just going to roll ahead, try and build up the O-line, and potentially give Sam another chance next year? What's the future looking like at the quarterback position? If you don't get that asshole off the screen, damn it. He's been trolling me with Minshew forever, and I will not stand for it.
ECU, baby. ECU. He played here for a minute.
Would have been better than you could have had him for free this offseason. Hey, okay, so a lot of stuff in that question. I think that isn't it weird that we're now like 3 years later and the option again seems to probably be the best option going forward is just to keep Cam for another year. Like even though I think and I will eat crow. I know a lot of people killed me. I never thought he would be back. I never thought that. I never thought, like, literally right up until the day that he signed, I went on Mac and T-Bone show and was like, he's not coming, guys. I'm sorry. It would be a great story. I would love it if he did, but he's not coming. And then lo and behold, here he is. I thought that, the way that just men and the NFL work, I just did not think that this marriage would come back together. But you know what? Here we are, and I'm very glad that he did, because it kind of resurrected the fan base, gave people a reason to care, to watch. If you're a Panthers fan, if you have any sort of connection with the Panthers, and you didn't get at least a little bit emotional when he screamed "I'm back" into the camera. I texted my wife. My wife was like, "Did you see that?" And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, I'm
Came
emotional.
in my pants.
Like it's hard not to, Now, all that being said, I think there's a really good chance they let him walk again this year, and I think that it will just divide and murder the fan base just the way that it did the first time. I think there are a lot of people that it does not matter what Cam plays like over the last 5 games. They want him to come back. And I get that. I get that idea. He's the best player in the history of the franchise, certainly the most iconic, the most famous, a lot of people's favorite player of all time. I get it. I don't think Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback next year. You can cue the applause. I'm sure the chat's going crazy. This team has made it.
Imagine if it was. Imagine this. Imagine if it was.
Imagine if
and then we walked out there and we saw Sam Darnold and Matt Rhule together to start the season. I don't even know how I'd do this podcast.
And Cam is the backup. How do you like that?
Don't say that, man. We'll never invite you back.
Oh man, we would get more views than ever.
Mm-hmm. Anger views. So much
anger.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Hey, whatever. Anger clicks. They work. Lord knows. So I think that when you talk about, I think this team has proven over the course of the last 2 years. First of all, some of the things they do, I not only never expect, but I don't really understand. Like, this team they don't care about sunk costs, which is weird. They were just like, Teddy Bridgewater, we signed him to this big deal. It would make a ton of sense just to keep him for another year. Let's get rid of him. Denzel Perriman, we signed this guy to whatever, 2 years, $6 million, and then halfway through camp, he's too small. He's not vaccinated. Get him out of here. We'll pay half of his salary. Like, they're not scared to make these moves, which doesn't really it kind of seemed like it's one of those things where if it works, if this team is 8-4 or even 7-5, I think a lot of people are like, look at this team. They were not scared to abandon ship on guys that they didn't like. They have strong opinions. whatever, like
JC Horn gets hurt. They didn't quit. They go and get Stephon Gilmore. Ron Rivera and the team would have moved on. Would have just that.
Yeah,
now
the answer would have been on the roster. I mean, this team has never the answer being on the roster. That's why when people are like, they would say, oh, we should trade for Stephon Gilmore. It's like, no, they're not going to trade for Stephon Gilmore. And then it's like, oh, now you cannot take anything off the table. That was my mistake. And I think the Cam Newton signing will be the last thing that I will take off the table, because I think now you just don't, with Matt Rhule and David Tepper, they clearly are going to do whatever they think is best to try and win games. Now, whether it's going to work, and whether it's going to help them in the long run, the organization, are different questions. But they are going to do, they obviously, they wanted to win. And so they said, who is a quarterback that we can go out there and get that will help us win? And Cam Newton was the answer. So they went out and got Cam Newton. It is unusual to me that a team that seems to be focused in on, getting better and having sustained excellence, the phrase that David Tepper used so many times when they were looking for a coach, is so interested in winning right now.
Yeah. Let me, I have another question I want to jump in here with. Thinking about this game coming up here with the Atlanta Falcons, we're 5-7, as are the New Orleans Saints, as are the Atlanta Falcons. Today, Robbie Anderson even said, when asked about Joe Brady, that he was confused about the timing of the firing because they are still in position to make a playoff push. My question to you is, and again, I know this is personal. I mean, I know you have no way of truly knowing this, but do you think Matt Rhule and the coaches here in Carolina have any faith that this team can actually make an appearance in the playoffs this year? Or are they just kind of biding times or biding their time until they're able to get to the end of this season, take another, off season to try and rebuild this thing to do it again? Is there any hope that this coaching staff can actually right the ship and turn it around with now a brand new offensive coordinator calling plays?
I think I can answer that. Yes, I think that they absolutely do think that they can make the playoffs, and that is the reason why they let go of Joe Brady, is because they want whatever he thinks that Jeff Nixon gives them the best chance to make the playoffs this year. And whether that's right or wrong, that's obviously what he thinks, and that's why they did it. And so I think that, yes, I think the thing is we look at, I think a lot of people, they look at this team and they're like, they got to fix the offensive line. And it's like, Matt Rhule knows that they have to fix the offensive line. He gets it. He's not dumb. He doesn't look at this and he's like, well, Trent Scott, 0.0 PFF, but I think we're good. It's like, there's just nobody out there available right now that's better. It's like Russell Okung is coming off the street to help you. Well, Deontay Brown, I'll talk about Deontay Brown in a second.
Okay.
I think that, but the reality is that he looks at this team and he looks at all the talent that they have on this roster. Obviously now Christian's hurt, and it's less talented. Dante is hurt. These guys are now out for the season, but I think they do look at it and they say, hey man, we're a blocked punt away. We're a fumble going our way. We're a bad throw going our way. We're, a bad read, whatever, from turning this thing around. Yes, they let go of the rope last week, and the defense fell apart, or not last week, but 2 weeks ago. But that was also after, they were in the game at halftime. So I think when you look at this team, I think Matt Rhule for sure thinks that they can make the playoffs. Whether that's a good way to build your franchise, to try and say, instead of, hey, we could be better next year because we're still building, to say, rather than Rome wasn't built in a day, it's like, well, we've been building for 12 hours, so it's done. And I think that it's just confusing messages. That's my thing. It just seems like that these two things go at odds of each other, but they can still be true, if that makes sense.
I would be okay with that response if I got more of that sense from Matt Rhule. Is that like he seems the least confident person though. Like while he's doing these things that are trying to win now, I don't feel any. I feel like the leadership is lacking, and maybe when I say leadership, I don't know what I'm actually technically mean by that. Look, Ron Rivera never got shook. I tell you this is that's why his teams win in November and December. He does not get shook, and maybe it's loyal to a fault. You can call it stubborn to a fault, whatever it may be, but he has resolve. He believes in himself when no one else does. The Carolina Panthers needed to believe in themselves when no one else does. When I watch Matt Rhule go in those press conferences, I don't even know if he believes in himself at this moment. That's the concern I have with that.
I understand your concern. I mean, less than 2 weeks ago, Matt Rhule said, if you believe in the process, you double down on the process. And then within 2 weeks, he fired the offensive coordinator. So it's like, do those two things make sense together? No, they don't. Of course they don't. But it's like, that's what we've been talking about this whole time, and what we will probably continue to talk about until this team either starts winning or there is a change. The things that are it just seems like the things that are happening are not what are being said, and then what's being said is something else is being said a few weeks later. So it just seems it's just very inconsistent messaging and direction, to be honest.
What's the building feel like? Is that you guys get and actually are these press conferences, are they all on Zoom?
Some of them are on Zoom, some of them are in person. I've got my daughter some days, so I'm Zoom than anything else.
But the sense is that I just wonder what the building feels. I what I would love to know is I'd love to have dinner with Bill Voth and not ask him any questions about the Panthers, or and just see how what's the sense, because it creeps into the DNA of the room a little bit. And I don't know. And look, actually, one thing you said earlier about with the Teddy Bridgewater thing and David Tepper and the thinly veiled comments, I'm actually upset that Matt Rhule didn't have more backbone. Is Tepper really such a big force that like even somebody who is process oriented can't even resist this guy walking in the room and saying, this is what I want, kind of thing? I just kind of wonder what the sense and the feeling is after 10 years of dealing with Rivera.
I guess the question would be, I know, I said earlier, David, that Tepper was kind of the first guy to call out Bridgewater, but when you look at all of the win now, we can do this, this is our year mentality that seemed to be coming from Matt Rhule, I almost question, like, did he agree? Did he say, hey, I don't like what we're getting from the quarterback position either. We got to move on. And if it means that we got to give up future draft picks to get better, then that's what we're going to do. And that's obviously what happened. So I think there are, to me, I don't feel like there are really personnel moves that happen without his signature on them or without his stamp. And I think that, that feeling is, so you asked about inside the building. I think that this is really one of those situations where the COVID protocols are really hurting the reporting that's able to be done, because so much of the stuff is on Zoom, because you don't get access to the locker room. So, like, perfect example, I know it's not the Panthers, but like the Bills players, that the reporter asked, kind of an asshole question, but at the same time, like, it's a legitimate question. Like,
I thought so too. I thought it was a good question.
Phrased it differently, but I think it's a fine question to ask someone that just had their ass handed to them on the ground. And because that had to happen at the podium. You can't get a sense. You can't talk to somebody one-on-one. It has to happen in front of everybody. You don't get those little. You don't get to see what the. You don't get to see anything that they don't want to show you necessarily, and so you lose out on that. Especially in a locker room that has Cam Newton in it. You can usually tell what's happening from the soundtrack of what's playing, or not playing after the game. So it's like I think you lose out on a lot of that stuff. But the relationship that we had with Ron was something that you were used to. So it's like I don't know that we are used to what the rhythms of Matt Rhule yet. And I think that the reality is like everything looks dumb until it works. But if it doesn't work, then it never stops looking dumb, if that makes sense. So I think that it's one of those things where
then it is dumb. If it never works, it turns out it is dumb.
I mean, there you go. So it's like Matt Rhule has a specific way that he wants to lead a team and a franchise, and he obviously, the reports. I believe the reports. I don't want to quote anybody incorrectly, but I believe the reports were that he turned down the Jets job because he didn't have enough power. Essentially, they wanted him. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I just heard that he wanted full control of picking his staff.
Right, and they didn't want to give it to him. And obviously, the Panthers were willing to, which I think is what you should do when you hire somebody. But you better make sure that's the right guy. And he has a specific way that he wants to run the team. He wants to run the franchise, and that's why you saw a lot of this roster turnover, because he wanted to bring in his guys, Matt Rhule's guys.
Oh, he did.
He did. And, if that's not going to work, you're going to have a lot of Matt Rhule's guys in there, and a new coach is going to be coaching them. So if it works, then that's great. But, so far it has not worked. Oh, Deontay Brown. I see them coming up in the chat. I don't think Deontay Brown is ready to play in the NFL. I think he might have been had he had a full season worth of practice. I think he just missed first of all, he lost so much weight from where he was playing in Alabama. It's a big jump from Alabama. I get it. Alabama is Alabama, but it's a big jump from the SEC to the NFL. That's just the reality of the situation. He lost 30 pounds. Is that how much he lost? So
something of that order.
Yeah, something in that nature. Then he missed 4 weeks. And I think a lot of people are like, get him out on the field. I think you're going to, if you want to see what you have in him, if you put him out, if you just drop him out there after he missed 4 weeks and he hasn't played a snap in the NFL at this weight, he's going to get murdered out there. And that's not good either. So I think, especially for offensive linemen, a lot of this stuff is about psyche. I think one of the reasons why Brady Christianson started at right tackle is because they didn't want his first snaps in the NFL ever to be at left tackle and maybe have him play poorly. And then those are the kind of things, it sounds so dumb, but enough guys, sometimes they don't recover from that. They say, hey man, I don't have it. I can't do it. And so I think you have to put them in a situation where they can succeed. And I don't think Deontay Brown, putting out Deontay Brown right now, is a good idea. I think he needs to be out there at some point, but I think this week, his first week coming back off IR, actually last week he came back off IR, right? So he's been practicing out there for 5 practices. Maybe he'll look good enough and he'll be ready. I would assume he'll be active since everyone else either has COVID or a hamstring. But I think putting him out there to start, I think he's going to struggle, and I would rather see him get out there and put some good tape on, put some good plays on tape, put a good show out there, and then just like we've been talking about, right? This is a longer timeline. I don't need Deontay Brown to be good this season. I just don't. But I do need him to get some reps. But I want him to get the right kind of reps.
Yeah, well, I mean that's been my criticism of Matt Rhule seemingly this entire year, is that you have these 2 young rookie players, and now by not giving them meaningful playing time, and your point is well made about Deontay Brown, but I guess even more so earlier in the season with Deontay Brown, but also throughout the entirety of the season with Brady Christianson, it's like, going into next season, we really don't know how many offensive linemen we need to upgrade in order to be a competent football team next year. Because in not playing Christensen and Brown, it's almost like we've kicked the can down the road on the evaluation process. And we really don't know what we have in those two guys. And you're hoping that next year you're going to be able to fit them in and that they're going to be ready to play an NFL schedule. But they didn't get the reps and the time to do it this year. So all of those rookie mistakes that they're afraid of them making, well, now you've just kind of pushed that off onto next year, and you're going to have to essentially you're putting this process on hold and making it even slower. I don't know if I could do what you do, Josh, because I feel like part of my nature is I'm very confrontational, and I feel like I would almost ask questions of Matt Rhule purposefully just to piss him off. Like, Matt Rhule, what is it specifically about Brady Christianson's game you don't think equates to being a left tackle in the NFL? Like, just to see if he would get mad, or just to say, or if he would point blank say, yeah, well, his arms are short. Like, just completely put it out there for him. I just feel like, I would like to hear someone, and I'm not saying that you don't, but I feel like a lot of times Matt Rhule kind of just says whatever, gives people the coach speak. And he says a lot without actually explaining anything in detail as to why he makes certain decisions, and kind of lets people parse through his own words and kind of piece things together there. I know there's no question there. I apologize for
no, it's totally fine. I think he kind of did address that today. I think somebody asked him specifically, like, why he can't, like, what's the difference between tackle and guard? And that was when he kind of like talked about how, when you're a tackle, you want the longer arms so you can get contact with the guy. Guard, everything happens closer in. So you want like barrel chested and strong guys that can, T-Rexes, as everybody likes to call them. But I think that, I get it. It's frustrating especially when you have, it's all the same. All these answers are the same. I'm sorry. I just keep saying the same thing basically, but it's like
all of our questions are the same.
No. But it's like if you need the team to win this year, then that's why they can't play Deontay Brown and Brady Christiansen. But if the goal is to be better and have sustained excellence, then the goal is to get these guys the reps whenever they need them and however they need them. But if they think, and they do, if their goal is to make the playoffs, they're whatever they are, a game and a half outside the 7 seed, their goal is to make the playoffs or bust. I think playing Deontay Brown doesn't make any sense for if that's your goal, so if that's their goal,
I would agree with that. I would agree with that if you're also the other guards hadn't just let everybody through like a damn turnstile. It was like, it'd be one thing if these other guys actually gave you a better chance, but I don't even know if I can believe that at this point. What do you think we'll see out of Cam for the rest of the season?
Oh man, a lot of rushing touchdowns. Can I tell you something? When they ran that option on 3rd and 1 with Cam Newton as the quarterback, if he didn't make the decision to fire him right then, like that would have been the moment for me, because it's like, this is the best short yardage weapon in the NFL, and you running an option between Chuba Hubbard and Amir Abdullah doesn't really, and then punting it on 4th down or passing it on 4th down. It doesn't really make any sense. But I think Cam is who he is now. He's always going to have that rushing threat. He's always going to be a smart quarterback that's going to make the right plays. He's an incredible leader. He's going to get guys fired up. But ultimately, he's not the same physical player that he was in 2015 or 2017 even. That's just the reality of the situation. And so he's just a different player now than he was. But that doesn't mean that he can't be. That doesn't mean, in his words, that he's not one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL, because he certainly is. He certainly gives you a better chance to win than PJ Walker, and I like PJ Walker. So it's like, I think that this is a guy that is he's Cam Newton. So he's going to go out there. He's going to give you a chance to win every single week.
Is it going to be really good and really bad each week? You know what I'm saying? Like one or the other, or I kind of saw how he played with the Washington game. He was part of the solution in that game. He's part of the problem in the Miami game.
Yeah.
Is the truth in the middle, or are we going to get good Cam or not good Cam, but better Cam one week or something, and then terrible Cam? I need Cam to finish on a high note. And when I say a high note, I don't mean playoffs. I mean, I need my man to not look like a shell of, he's my favorite player of all time.
Yep.
It was Julius Peppers who got me into football. But I have to admit, like, there's been nobody else who has been so emblematic of being a Panther fan than Cam Newton. I mean, it's like nobody. And I'm a Steve Smith kind of. I mean, he's great. He's a GOAT too. But God, I need Cam to not go out a shell of himself. Are we going to see shell Cam? Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. I wish I did, and I completely agree with you. One of the absolute best things about Cam Newton being back in Carolina is that his last game will not be the end of that Tampa Bay game where he got booed off the field because they had handed it to Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
And that was a sad and unfitting ending for Cam Newton. And I'm glad that he's back. And honestly, if he'd have come back and done the intro,
and then left after that,
and then left after that, or just scored the touchdown, run out to midfield, done the Superman, and then just kept running into the locker room.
Yeah,
retired. Like that would have been incredible. Put his name up on the Hall of Honor. And I said this, and Panthers Twitter crushed me for saying that before he got signed, that I really hope that he came back late in the season, led a team through the playoffs, and went out in a blaze of glory. Because that's what I want for Cam Newton, is for him to have that fairy tale ending. And it is so rare that happens in sports and in the NFL. And for it to theoretically happen here in Carolina would be incredible. And you're absolutely right. I don't think that he has to lead them to a Super Bowl for this season to be a success.
Or even the playoff, man. I just need a 300-yard passing game at the end of the season, 2 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? A rushing touchdown where it's not like this. We cannot finish Cam's career in Carolina with a 1.8 quarterback rating.
No,
please.
Getting benched. I think so. Let me ask you this, right? I'm just hypothetically, right? So let's say they're 6-10 going into week 17. They're eliminated from the playoffs. Or week 18. God, the 17 game week.
I know, it's tough.
17 game season. So stupid. Week 18. Do you want Cam Newton to lead them to the win that's going to cost the Panthers 3 or 4 draft spots? Would you rather get that win in week 18, or would you rather have the higher draft pick?
The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Is that if we wanted to lose out, it was last year. We don't have the draft picks to really tank, to really help us. And to be honest, even if we lose out for the rest of the year and we finish 5 and what would that be? 5-12?
Yeah.
Is that
5 and 12.
If we finish that, we're still like barely cracking the top 8 or the top. You know what I'm saying? Like there are still teams ahead of us that have had worse seasons. Like we're not going to be in the top 3 by losing out. So right now, I think if there was a time to lose out, it was last year. That Washington game hurt us tremendously. And I'm not saying the players need to lose on purpose, but yes, I'm talking I hate to say it, but I want to run Cam into the dirt right now. And not run him into the dirt, but I'd hate to ruin his career twice. Imagine ruining his career twice in Carolina, man. Get this dude a win. He needs to go out on a win, a good game, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. And if that's all I get, if that's the last moment with Cam, it's better than him being benched, like you said.
But Josh, also there's it's not like there's a specific player in the draft this year that Panther fans are like, oh, that's the dude. We gotta have that dude. We gotta go get that guy. Like everyone's, already talking about Kenny Pickett because of his ties to, Temple and Matt Rhule. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but it's like, okay, you're gonna put a rookie quarterback behind another terrible offensive line. It's just kind of like, I agree with Tony. The fact that we have no draft picks, there isn't really a player that we can really pinpoint in the draft. It's like you might as well do everything you can to win.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I was just curious what you guys thought about it. I think I have a weird thought process on the draft because the draft is really hard, and you see so many guys bust in the top 3, which is insane. Like it's not even like, oh, we drafted this guy at 18 and he didn't work out. Like
you can even say the top. I mean, like the top 10. That's
1.
Crazy when you say top 3. That's like sad.
I mean, look at that.
There's one of them playing quarter, not with a cracked shoulder blade, trying to rehab.
Right. Oh my God, yeah.
But I think that sometimes I know a lot of people killed them for that win, that Washington win last year, right? That cost them some draft position. I think when this team was building for sustained excellence, that Washington win felt like it meant a lot more. Felt like it was like, hey, this team is going to never give up. Like they're going to, he's got these guys playing for him. Now it feels different, obviously, but the reality is like, I think that, the guy that you drafted 8, the guy that you drafted 12, you just have to pick the right guy.
Sure.
Like Rashawn Slater went 14, right? And that guy looks like a franchise left tackle 13 games into the season. So,
yeah, man, they're saying he's all pro. I mean, already all pro already. Do you think the Sam Darnold injury is real?
Yeah, I do.
Really? I mean, all right, if that's the case, then if he is ready to come back in theory, why would they ever play him? I mean, or would they even give him an honest shot to compete at the end on the stretch for someone who knows if it's real, it feels so convenient that oh man, this team sucks. Sam Darnold was the worst thing ever. Oh, I had to go and let him suffer through this because I benched him last week and then conveniently put the IR. I think and I know this is tinfoil hat, and I believe it, is they said, go in there, Doc, and find something that we can put this dude on IR. Look at that little crack right there. Get out of here.
I think if they didn't want to play him, I would think he would have just benched him. I think,
and just admit that they were wrong, to the end.
I think they're gonna admit it this offseason anyway.
Like you said, sunk costs.
So who can? So I don't think they care. I think he cares less about what we think and more about winning. That's all he cares about, whether it's good or bad, and whether he can or not. That is what Matt Rhule cares about. Is he wants to win on Sunday, and whether he's doing the right thing to get them there to do it is debatable. But that's what he wants to do, and I think Sam Darnold is probably going to come back and probably going to practice at some point this season. I mean, there's still a month left in the season, which is insane. It's December 8th, and they don't play their December 8th. Yeah, December 8th, and they play their Week 18 game in a month from today.
Yeah, so I know. We could go to New Orleans. We could go to New Orleans. That's not even the last game of the year.
Please do. I'll be there. New Year's Eve. Let's go.
I know. I'm trying to. It's like what I've been trying to talk my wife into. And by the way, you can tell this. Is this what I want to ask David Tepper, all these people? Is we can get lower bowl tickets at the dang what is it, the Superdome, for $130 right now, 10 rows up in the end zone. But man, we got to go to Bank of America and sit 27,000 rows up for the same price. Crazy. All right, Cody, let's get the final questions in. Get on out.
So, Josh, once again, thanks for your time, man. It's always fun talking to you. You have a great perspective on this football team. My question to you is this: what kind of owner do you think David Tepper is going to be specifically over the course of this offseason? So, for example, do you foresee, either Cam or Sam Darnold being the best options going forward at quarterback? Or do you potentially see, I mean, again, there's a lot of ifs in this equation. Tony knows I have a very specific saying about ifs when you say them too much. But, if, for example, Deshaun Watson, his name pops up again and we're talking about him, being able to play, and for whatever reason, he's able to clear his name in court. If he's on the block, and, do you think David Tepper, even in spite of our low draft capital and even, our free agency money kind of being in flux as well, did you think David Tepper is going to have, that itchy trigger finger again this year? And is he going to be pushing Scott Fitterer to kind of make a move at quarterback position, be it someone like Watson or Wilson or even Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think that they're going to once again go into the offseason unhappy with where they're at quarterback. And so, judging from their past, they're going to do something about it. Now, maybe they'll learn a lesson from the past 2 years and say, hey, maybe the best bet is just to go forward with the quarterbacks we have on the roster and, and improve the offensive line. And then we'll try to nail a quarterback in next year's offseason or next year's draft or however they might want to do it. I think I will say this. I don't think they were never really particularly close on Deshaun Watson near the trade deadline. There was a lot of talk, obviously, but I think they were very close to Deshaun Watson before all of the legal stuff happened. I think they were certainly, if they weren't the leader in the clubhouse, they were right there with the leader in the clubhouse. I think they made it clear they were the leader for Matt Stafford until Stafford kind of pushed it aside and said they wanted the deal from LA. So this team is not scared to do what they want to do, whatever they can do to find they realize that quarterback is the most important position in the game, and they want to do whatever they can do to improve that. Sometimes those decisions don't end up working out, obviously, as they did with Sam, as they made a mistake trading for Sam Darnold, but I don't think that mistake is going to keep them from attempting to do it again next year. I think that when you look at like where they're at, where these quarterbacks are, to me, Aaron Rodgers is the one that makes the most sense. I think a pretty clear offseason path is what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did before the 2019 season, which is you use your 1 first-round pick on a left tackle, you fill in the interior line with guys that maybe could be a little bit better. Maybe you can improve them over the course of the offseason. But the reality is like Pat Elflein is pretty average center. Not a great center, but he could, you put guys around him, he could be an okay center. Maybe they obviously think Brady Christianson can play guard. So now you're drafting a left tackle, you're filling one position up front, bring back Hassan Reddick. Maybe now you have J.C. Horn, A.J. Bouye, and C.J. Henderson at corner. You've got this elite defense that was the number 2 defense for the first half of the year before they kind of lost control of the rope a little bit. And you say to Aaron Rodgers or to Russell Wilson or to insert your all-pro quarterback here and say, hey, look at this team that we have around. You have DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey's going to be back next year. There's too much money on the table. Or maybe it takes Christian to get him to make that trade happen. Okay, like if that's the case, then that's the case. But you look at how much talent this team could have, that if and it sounds so dumb because these are the two most important things in the NFL. If they can get the offensive line figured out and the quarterback figured out, that they can compete with anybody in the league. I know that sounds super rosy, especially from where I was at the beginning, but maybe I'm just feeling a little bit positive. But it's like I would love to
know what you're drinking.
I would love to see that. I would love to see them. I would love to see them be headed in this direction, but it doesn't seem that way, if that makes sense. Like I think that I'm just kind of talking about how this is what I would do, but I don't think that's. I'm not necessarily confident that they will do the right thing, because I haven't really seen a ton of the right thing over the course of the past 2 off seasons.
Well, it does feel so far away until it's not. And is that like this team after New England, I thought the whole season was over, and then all the Cam stuff hit, and then this and that, and I have, oh man, new leaf, new direction. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, sometimes it feels like it's going to take forever to turn around, and then it turns around, and you're like, man, it can happen. My last question to you is kind of, if you could know one thing about this season, like if you could know the inner workings of something that happened, whether it be why the relationship between Rhule and Brady soured, or Tepper not wanting Teddy, or something like that. Like if there's one thing we could know that would give us more insight into this season and why it's been this way, what would it be? I want to know. Go ahead.
I think it would be why the virtual reality Panther does the same thing every single week.
Come on.
But yet it's still considered like so
awesome.
Like he comes on, the people are texting like, oh my God, is the Panther really there? And it's like he just jumps up and rips a flag down. Like that's all he does.
Oh my goodness. I was looking for more than that.
Did I avoid it?
And you could have at least done this. You could have at least said, why did he have green eyes the first week after he ate the Jets flag? And then we were all like, why has he got green eyes? And then the next week they're like, nope, blue eyes Panther.
See, that's reading headlines right there. That's somebody that was like, oh, we got to get rid of those green eyes. No, I understand your question, and I it's a good one. It's honestly a question. I think one of the things I would really like to, I don't know. It's tough to say. Yes, I would like to know. I think what I would like to know for a fact, and I think we all would, is just how much influence on a day-to-day basis David Tepper has over the football operations. Because I think we all make assumptions, and I think a lot of times you make these assumptions and they're just not right. And then you build out these storylines. Like that's one of the tough things to not do. It's like you build out these storylines in your head, and then everything that's happening lines up with what you think has happened in the past, but the thing that happened in the past never actually happened. So now the thing that you think is proving that this thing happened is just another thing that happened. And so it's like once you get something in your head, you tend to be like, okay, this is like all of these things are being driven. Like, everybody thinks that Dave Tepper told Matt Rhule to fire Joe Brady, right? Like a lot of people like that's a storyline that I think a lot of people believe. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. But you don't fire your offensive coordinator without feeling some pressure to do something. So whether that was audible pressure, whether that was just a feeling pressure, whether it was just kind of like personal pressure.
Right. Yeah. Are you perceiving pressure? One of the things that I work at a community college, and sometimes I feel like our own department puts pressure on us that we think what the administration is going to want. And they haven't even told us these things yet, but we're kind of like anticipating the pressure. I want to know if Joe Brady was Matt Rhule's guy, because there's been a group of people that tell me that Tepper paired Joe Brady with Matt Rhule, and I just find it difficult to believe that Matt Rhule, who brings everybody from Baylor, is going to bend on this one thing and be like, okay, well, I'll let you force this guy down. I just want to know, what was the break? Was Matt Rhule wrapped up in the LSU joint so much And who the hell's pick was Teddy Bridgewater? Was that Brady and y'all? Was that, I don't know. Those are the two things I want to know.
The second one, I think it was Marty more than anybody for Teddy Bridgewater.
Thanks.
I think so too. I agree.
The first question, I don't know. Like I honestly don't know. I'm certainly not doing any sort of sourced reporting. To me, it seems like he got this gig where he can go out and hire anybody he wants, and he was like, "Well, how about if I get the super hot the dude from LSU that everybody wants? Like, he can come. Like
Next Wonder
I can text
Boy
him and he's interested, and so I can be the guy that brought Sean McVay to the NFL, and then I'll be remembered that way. And not only that, but our offense is going to be awesome. Yeah, that's who I would like to bring. And it's like, and he also brought his guy too. Like Jeff, he brought his guy. His guy is here. His guy is now their offense. He's calling the plays now. So it's like, I think to me that's if I had been Matt Rhule, I would have been like, yeah, well, who's the number one offensive coordinator? Who can I get? Personally, I would have brought in an ex NFL head coach. I was screaming that from the rooftops when he's putting his staff together, but he didn't. So again, like these are the things like not what I would have done, but that's what he did. And so a lot of times it's like just try to react to what actually is happening.
So Josh, I have one more real fast, super quick question.
No, for sure.
If the Panthers get absolutely dog walked by the Atlanta Falcons at home, I know you just said, we're kind of postulating that Matt Rhule, he'll be afforded that third year. I kind of think so too, even though I don't agree with it. But if the Panthers lose another home game to a division rival, when they're tied, when they already won the first game, is there any way that Matt Rhule could potentially be at risk of losing his job if, a doomsday scenario plays out this Sunday in the bank? You
mean like Sunday and Monday?
Dude, I'm talking
like a Black Monday type of situation?
Like 40-3 or
oh, no, yeah.
Let your mind go crazy, man.
Like a Hiroki Nakamura type of situation.
Oh, dude, as bad as you can think.
I think, I just honestly, first of all, I'm going to do exactly what I said that I wouldn't do like 20 minutes ago. I just can't see it. Like, I just don't. I don't think that you bring a guy in that has a reputation for building programs, and every single time, I mean, it's like it's a script, right? It's like the third year they're okay the first year, they're better the second year, and then the third year they're good. Like it has happened in the last two spots he's been, and whether it can translate to the NFL, who knows? But like they do still make this jump. But to me, it's like I just can't see it. I can't see it. But that being said, a lot of things I couldn't have seen in the past that certainly happened. So who the hell knows? That's the fun part of watching on Sunday, right?
Yeah, it certainly is, man. For sure.
I'd like to encourage everybody to go check out the Riot Report. Here's some headlines that are, since this is the Beat Check, these are the headlines out there right now. Out of lifelessness, Panthers now need to save their own season. Panthers 7-round bye week mock draft. We're already in mock draft season.
Mock draft season, baby.
Oh my gosh. How did the Panthers...
Ton of trade downs on that mock draft too, so it's fun.
How did the Panthers get into this mess, and who is to blame? These are the types of stories that are floating around the beat this week. Josh Klein from the Riot Report, man, we appreciate your time. Tell them how they can find you on social media and what's going on with the Riot, the Roaring Riot, to be more specific.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Klein Rules. Follow the Riot Report at our Riot Report. My fingers don't work as good this season because I have a 6-month-old daughter. That was why I was drinking whiskey with no ice.
Welcome to the life, homie. You are now an alcoholic, homie. If you weren't already, now you is.
I like to think of me as just a pleasant lush. But the Roaring Riot, if you guys aren't familiar, it's the fan club of the Carolina Panthers. RoaringRiot.com. We go to every single away game. We have a huge home tailgate before every single tailgate that has free food for our members. Drinks, our $3 donation, Jack Daniels, Tito's, Noda Brewing, powered by Pepsi. Literally at the corner of Moorhead and Cedar. It's the big tailgate with 1,000 people at it. That's the Roaring Riot tailgate. So I would encourage anybody to stop by this Sunday, see what it's all about. It's a $10 guest fee. You're going to spend more than that anywhere that you go.
Yes, go, man. Everybody's nice. They're all Panther fans. There's food, there's booze. Lock arms, man. You guys are talking about change the culture. I'm trying to say we need to make a culture now.
Yeah, it felt like there was a point where we were sort of like changing it, and now it's just all. I mean,
like we got to lock arms and hold together.
We took one step forward to take 3 steps back.
Gosh.
It's the worst part about what has happened over the course of the season was the apathy that was happening in the fan base, and it's just sad to see, and it sucks more than anything else to go to a game and see the upper decks covered in purple or green or red or whatever the opposite team's color. It's just disheartening. And it's not just disheartening for fans, it's disheartening for players, it's disheartening for coaches. Nobody wants to see that. So it's if you have the opportunity, if you live in Charlotte and you're a Carolina Panthers fan, I get it. There's a chance they're going to lose. There's a chance they're going to be embarrassing out there, and you're going to spend your hard-earned money to get to watch them get embarrassed. But you know what? Sometimes they don't get embarrassed. Sometimes Cam Newton scores a touchdown and he runs out to midfield and does the Superman, and you're there for that experience. Or not only that, in a game that they lost against the Minnesota Vikings, they got the ball back down by 8 with less than 2 minutes. They drove down the field. They scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And then the Vikings came down and missed a field goal, which sent it to overtime. I get it. They lost ultimately. But that 10-minute period is why you are a fan, is for that 10-minute period of being so excited that you just cannot believe that this is happening to your team, even though the season hasn't been going great. Things were pretty terrible. Sam Darnold was the quarterback at that time. It's like in that moment when they missed that field goal, you're hugging you're hugging the people next to you, you're high-fiving. That's why you're a fan of a team. And the Roaring Riot wants to bring as many fans together as possible, whether it's at the game, whether it's at the bar, whether it's at your friend's house. Go and watch the game with other people. Don't watch the game by yourself. I get it. They may lose. It may be frustrating, but it's better to yell at your friend about how much you hate Matt Rhule.
Yeah, it's better to be angry than to not care at all. And if your ass is in Charlotte, get your ass there. Us people, some of us got to drive 5 hours there and back and to get there. And we got to try to make that hustle and either take the day off work. We got Josh from Mass. We got Nick Montier. They drove down from Massachusetts this year. Poor guys, 3 years in a row making this giant trek. And one of your, who's Keep Poundin'?
Yeah,
he came from Massachusetts too.
He brought the whole band down, Dalton and the Sheriffs. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, and these guys, they make that trek. And I know they can't make it every week. But if your butt is in Charlotte, get down there. Hell, even just go down tailgate at the stadium. Who cares?
That's nothing. We see guys from the German Riot they were at the game a couple weeks ago.
God bless them.
Paul's coming down from Canada. Like people are making treks to see this team even at 5-7. So I think if you live in Charlotte, come down again. Just like Tony said, come to the tailgate. You don't have to go to the game. Come and have a bunch of beers and then go watch the game at a bar. I get it. You don't want to spend $100 on a ticket? Totally, for sure. Like, although I don't think on Sunday you're gonna have to pay $100. But
don't get, if you're a man. The worst thing is not caring. That's the worst thing. Is don't be a soccer fan. I mean, and when I say that, it's like you can be a soccer fan, but like don't change sports, folks. We'll get through this. We'll get through.
Well, you can be a Hornets fan too. I mean, like,
go to that.
You should like both, but the reality is like, I would imagine anybody that's watching C3 and that's one of your great listeners and viewers, like they're fans. Like you're not like it's not like did the Panthers play yesterday? You know, like that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
happening.
I know. We care about
No.
practice squad players, bro. Like these
Yeah.
people in the chat, they tell us, they be hitting us up and they'll be like, you see this move? I'll be like, nah, man, I was asleep.
Hey, listen, we've built a really cool community here with the C3 Panthers podcast, and we always say it like this: we do a post game show, and we're the therapy session. We're your Panthers therapy session, but you get to come and vent after this team inevitably disappoints you for going on 4 hours. You might have more fun here than you did watching the football game, and I'm sure that's true of those tailgates that you guys do too.
It's one of those things. If you are, how long have you been married, Josh?
Great question. Oh boy. 7 years.
Too long, Josh.
7 years. The thing is this, is that marriages go through their ups and downs, but the scary part is when you don't fight anymore. And what I mean by that is, like, if there's no passion at all, then you got to worry.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's like, it's better for y'all, and not y'all too, but like, is that fans, it's okay. We'll get through this. Just stick with us, folks. Just stick with us. We got to stick with them because it will be sweeter. It will be sweeter when it turns around. All right. Josh Klein, the Riot Report. That's the C3 Beat Check, man. Thank you for your time tonight. We're so generous with it. Maybe you go rub a little whiskey on those gums of that little baby. That's what my mama said she used to do.
My shift goes until midnight. We split the night up, so I've got another hour and a half to keep my ear out, and then my wife takes the tough part. But she's got help to put her back to sleep. I have to.
You don't have boobs.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have the artillery to go in there. I don't have the weapons.
You're not packing heat. Not
Exactly.
the necessary kind.
Fantastic stuff tonight. Thanks, guys. Cody, take us out of here, man.
Until next time, Panther fans, keep pounding.